Where does all the time go? I would love to know the answer to that question. I've lost count about the number of times that I have said I'll get something done by the end of the day, only to realise I had it half finished by 6 pm and I'd missed a critical step. Or I gave a piece of work to somebody else and I was genuinely surprised when they came back and told me it took them twice as long as I'd expected. And I know I'm not the only one, because accurately estimating how long it's going to take to do a piece of work, what's involved, what's needed, is one of the biggest challenges we face when it comes to managing our workload and that of our teams. So in this video, what I'm going to share with you is a full life cycle that helps you identify all of the work to be done, not just the things that are obvious. That's going to help us to better manage our expectations and other people's expectations about the job to be done. Now, this is an idea that I borrowed from design thinking. They have a concept called job to be done, and it helps them identify everything that's required for a product or a service or a process to run really, really well. And when it comes to our daily work, our daily activities, one of the big problems I see is that people focus mostly on the piece of work that you can see. So for example, if the job is to run an end of month report, people focus on the steps of running that monthly report and exporting it. But there is so much more that happens before and after that. There is so much more than the job to be done. I'd like to say that there is pre-work, there is a job to be done, and then there's post-work. And if we start to look at that full cycle, as opposed to just the piece we can see, we can definitely understand what exactly is required. And so let's kind of walk through this step by step, take a look at each of the phases, all right? So before you can get into an activity, so for example, before you can run that report, there's often other steps that are required beforehand. I call this pre-work. And usually when we are handing work over to somebody else or if we're taking on something new, we kind of forget about this stuff, okay? If you're handing something over, it's because you've done the work so many times, maybe it's just second nature to you and you're just not thinking about it, obviously. If you're taking on the work, you just might not know what's needed, okay? But this is stuff that's required in order for the job itself to be successful. So for example, you could ask yourself, is there certain information that's needed? Is there somebody that needs to be consulted or informed before you do the job? Do you need certain access to different systems? Do you need access to certain tools? Do you need a certain level of permissions? And are there dependencies on other people or other projects? So in the reporting example, maybe the information that you need is the period of reporting, what's to be included, what's not to be included, any particular notes. Maybe you need to consult with another team, let's say finance or customer success or product, before you run the report to see if they have anything they want to add in. Maybe in your reporting system, different people across the company have different levels of access to information. So you need to make sure that you have the right level of access to get all the detail that you need. And maybe you can't hit run until somebody else has done their checks, has done, their quality audit of the data or something like that. So here you can see that before you ever do the report, there is pre-work that's required. And one of the best things we can do is call this out, to make a list of it along with the main job, to understand what exactly is required first. So then we move on to the job to be done. And to be fair, most people are pretty good at outlining what this is. So some people use step-by-step SOPs, standard operating procedures, where they document everything, or maybe they take screenshots, maybe there's a video walkthrough. People generally have a pretty good idea about what is involved. But always I challenge you to ask, are you taking anything for granted? So there are any steps that you've done them so many times that they seem really easy to you and almost too simple to be explained. And that's a big mistake. That's a big trap that people can fall into, okay? Because it might be simple to you, but for somebody who's taking it on for the first time, it may not be obvious. So when you are looking at the main job to be done, it's really important to document absolutely everything. So in our reporting example, it's not enough just to say, run this report for this period and export it to PDF. We'd have to actually show people step by step what that's involved, including any filters that you apply, including any other detail that you add in, all of the detail, all right? And then the job is done. Well, it seems to be done, but we've got that other stage now on the other side, we've got post-work. And this is where I see the value of the work often being lost. So I've seen hundreds of times people doing absolutely great work, but then they don't do the follow-up. And so the value of the work, the impact of the work isn't fully realized. So in our reporting example, you could have run a fantastic report, very informative, very insightful, but if it doesn't get to the right people, if it doesn't get the right action, if it doesn't get the right follow-up, then it's just a document, And I see people working really hard, doing a lot of good work, and it falls down in this post-work stage, okay? So we really want to make sure that we allow time for it, because otherwise you're just going to try and squeeze this in among all of your other work. So some questions you could ask yourself is, who needs to be notified when the job is done? Okay, so is there somebody on your team? Are there people in other departments? Do you need to upload it somewhere? Are there systems that need to be updated? So do you need to do any administrative work, which I know can be, a bit frustrating after you've already done a big chunk of work, but there are probably systems that need to be updated. Do you need to create any documentation? So for example, did you do something differently this time that worked better for the report and you need to update the instructions for next time? Or is there anything else like that needs to be done? And are there follow-up actions required? So for example, if you found an anomaly in the report, something that stands out, that's important, that needs action, is there a process there? Is there time set aside there for that action to be taken, or at least for it to be discussed? And again, when it comes to working on new activities, whether you've taken it on yourself or you're giving it to somebody else, I find most people put time aside for the main piece of work, for the job to be done. But we try to squeeze this pre-work and post-work in among everything else. And that means it doesn't get the attention it needs, it doesn't get the time it needs, it often doesn't get the effort that it needs. And so it kind of undermines the impact of the entire piece of work. And so the next thing I'd like you to consider is, what if you estimated the time for the full cycle of work and not just the piece that you can see? Okay, and I suggest that you break it down into pre-work, the job to be done, and post-work, because then we can see if your estimates are realistic for each stage. So in this example, maybe the report maybe takes an hour to run, okay? And, when we're giving work to other people, this is usually the time we tell them to set aside. Set aside an hour for the report. But maybe that pre-work, getting those permissions, getting the information from other teams, making sure that people are okay for you to run the report, all that back and forth. Maybe that all adds up to around 2 hours, right? Either 2 hours of your effort or 2 hours of time lapsed. So that's more time that's being added on to the cycle of this job. And then when all that's done, there's another half an hour that you're going to have to spend making sure it gets to the right people, doing follow-up actions and all the bits and pieces. And so this piece of work isn't 1 hour, it could be as long as 3.5 hours. Now, when you do this, it does a few things. First of all, it shows you where the concentration of time really is, because in many cases, it's not actually around the doing of the job itself. It could be that the pre-work is more intensive than the job to be done, but that sets it up to run more smoothly. Or it could be that the job is quite routine, but the post-work is quite heavy. And even knowing that is important, because it means you're prioritizing the right part of the process and you're focusing your effort on the right part of the process. So it is worthwhile taking a moment to kind of estimate that. Now, when it comes to anything like this, I always say, when it comes to planning, when it comes to scheduling your time, when it comes to mapping out what's involved in a piece of work, the real value is if you decide to review it, because otherwise, I don't know, you're just kind of writing something down and you're following the instruction, but you never really take advantage of lessons that can be learned. So the next stage for me in this full life cycle is actually to review how that went. So did it take as long as you expected? Did it take less time or more time? Did you consider all the activities, or did other things crop up when you were doing them? And what this does is it helps you take a look to see, is there anything that you need to change the next time? So for example, if you've estimated that the pre-work takes 2 hours, but it actually takes 4, then you're going to have to ask questions like, what is causing that to be longer than I expected? Is it dependencies on other people? Is it a system issue? Is it a training issue? What is causing that? Because it's only when we ask those questions and take action based on the answer that we can improve things. Otherwise, what's going to happen is every new piece of work is just going to add more and more pressure onto your day. We're not going to streamline, we're not going to improve anything, we're not going to refine anything. And so we're going to be overloaded with work. Whereas if we can take a continual improvement approach, we do the work, we review it, we adapt and make changes, then that means that we can really streamline our activities and make them less burdensome on our workday, which, I'm all about. So if you are the person taking on the work, I think you have a responsibility to review it yourself. But if you're of a manager, it's even more important that you sit down with somebody and ask, did we do it in the way that we expected to? If not, why not? And what's the first change that we can make the next time you do that job in order to see, does it make a difference? And, if people have a lot on and if they're taking on one more piece of work, I think this makes a real difference because it shows that we're focused on trying to make things run as smoothly as possible, that we're not comfortable with sitting with clunky processes that take up unnecessary time and add stress that doesn't need to be added, okay? So it shows that even if you are busy, even if there's a lot going on, we are focused on making things run as smoothly and as easily as possible. And don't you want that as much as I do for yourself and for your team? So just to recap, when you are taking on a new piece of work for yourself or for somebody on your team, I want you to focus on more than just the visible work, that obvious job to be done. We want to take a look at the pre-work, the main job to be done, the post-work, and then we want to consider how much effort we expect to be spent in each area. Once the job is done once or twice, we're going to want to review it, make sure that it has aligned with our expectations. And if not, why not? And what one change can you make to improve the process or improve the job to be done the next time around? Now, even if you aren't taking on new work at the moment, I would love for you to actually take this and apply it to one of the existing tasks that you have on your desk. Maybe something that is always sneaking up on you, causing you to spend longer at work than you plan, causing you an unnecessary headache. This is the exact life cycle or job cycle I want you to take and apply to that task to see if you can make any improvements. And do let me know in the comments if it makes any change for you in your workday, if it helps out your team, if you find something interesting. I would love to hear from you. Okay, that's it from me. I hope you found this video helpful and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.